All right. Hey, everybody. We're with these wonderful, wonderful educators today. First, Ellen Goodman, veteran and experienced teacher, here working with Donors Choose, a volunteer with Donors Choose, helping teachers accomplish their goals with crowdfunding sources. And Denise and Donna. So Denise and Donna, you responded to a post I put out on Facebook asking you whether you have ever participated with Donors Choose or heard of Donors Choose, and you had an interest and you came up, and here you are today, just about 7 days later. So can you tell us, Denise, first, can you tell us why you chose to respond to that post on Facebook?
Hi, good morning. So I'm actually, this is my first full year. I started last year, but I was like halfway into the year. And I'm a bilingual teacher, and I noticed that my classroom is lacking in like books, bilingual materials, and things like that for the students. So I thought it would be a good idea. So that's why I responded.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Denise, for responding. And Donna? Oh, can't hear you. No, mute.
So I'm on the opposite end of Denise. I've been teaching for 20 plus years.
Okay.
Last year I was remote, and this year I'm in the classroom kindergarten. I've always done upper grades. Well, this is my second year doing kinder, but this year I'm in a new classroom. And again, also, I'm lacking in a classroom library. It's like I have no classroom books for my kids. I'm hoping, so I'm hoping to get some donations to be able to fund my classroom library. And I always wanted to do donors choose. I see all the teachers at my school, oh, they got this, they got that. And I thought since I saw your post, it was a great opportunity for me to try it.
Awesome. Yeah, and I met Ellen on Facebook as well, and we had a nice conversation for about an hour, and she told me all about her Donors Choose, and she's got this really amazing resume with Donors Choose, and she's knocked it out of the park for so many educators. So I just wanted to provide an opportunity here and show you how she can really work this whole situation. So Ellen, please tell us a little bit about yourself and your affiliation with Donors Choose.
Hi, so I've been a teacher for 28 years, and in 2003, I went back to school for my master's in school supervision and administration, and I was required to write a grant. So I spoke to my principal at the time, and she had mentioned to me that she saw this man named Charles Best on the Oprah Winfrey Show, and he was running a interesting way of writing grants for schools. And she called it Donor's Choice because it was so unknown at the time that she got pretty close. I logged in and I wrote a very complicated full grant with putting in disaggregate information for the school. And I requested an Ellison machine, which was a die cut machine to make things for the school. And it was actually funded within about 2 weeks. And I was very excited, and it helped with the grant that I needed for my thesis. And then I walked away from Donors Choose, and I wasn't really interested for a little bit. A couple of years later, I came back to it and started writing projects because I was teaching in the computer lab, and I needed things that the school just couldn't provide. And at this point, as of today, I have 251 projects funded. I've been a distributed volunteer for them since 2013, and I've been the official New York City trainer for them since 2017. And I have a training partner who's not here today, but she and I wrote the slide decks, and we do the trainings mostly together. And we've trained over 1,000 teachers successfully to write and fund Donors Choose projects.
Amazing. That's absolutely amazing. All right, so let's get started.
Okay, so the slide deck I'm going to share with you is not exclusively mine. This was a collaboration through the staff at Donors Choose and some volunteers and some things that I and my training partner, Christy, have tweaked. But it's really a good overview for you to get started. The first thing I'm going to mention is in the chat, there is a link. That link is the way to associate a training with a current Donors Choose teacher. If you click on that link and click Get Started at the end of the presentation, that will tell Donors Choose that I am your trainer, and they will send me a gift card for training you that I will then be able to apply to your live project. A project goes through many stages, and the first stage, of course, is creating an account and writing the project. Then it goes to submission, where a volunteer such as I or one of 200 other volunteers will read it for transparency. We need to know exactly what you're requesting. For eligibility, is this something that's eligible to be funded? For example, a printer for your classroom is completely eligible, but gas for your car is not. Although as teachers, yes, we could use someone to help pay for our transportation. It also has to protect the students. You cannot use students' names. There's a photograph that you'll have to upload to show your classroom, and it can have a student's full face front and center. You also can't use things like stickers and emojis to cover faces, because their theory, Donors Choose theory, is if the photo has to be edited for safety, then it's not a safe photo to begin with. Once it's screened and transparency and eligibility and cost are all verified, which can take anywhere from just a couple of hours to 5 days, depending on how many projects are being submitted, your project can go live on the site, and that's when it's eligible for funding.
So
however,
okay, sorry.
Once it's submitted, it's eligible for something called pre-funding, where your friends and family will get a link and they can donate to it, except they're not donating directly to the project. They're basically sending you Donors Choose gift cards that can be applied to the project. So we'll go through the steps, and all of this will be crystal clear to you by the end. Debbie, did you have a question?
Yes. Okay. So this link right here that I see in front.
Yes.
What if somebody is watching this broadcast later? Can that person put
I will
that?
give them my email, my Donors Choose email, and they can email me and say, "Hi, my name is Debbie. I used your link to submit a project. This is the title of my project." And then if I receive the $25 from Donors Choose, because remember, you have to be a teacher who has never submitted a project on Donors Choose before. So some people come back after a couple of years of having an account that's dormant and try to use the link. And I understand, like, oh, I've never really had success, but this isn't about not having success. This is not having ever submitted a project before. So if you email me at that very simple email address, jbyc@yahoo.com, and tell me that your name and that you submitted the project, I can search for that project and apply the $25.
Wait, so what I want to do is I want to type in, so it's JBYC at
Yes.
at yahoo.com. You're saying, wait, 1 second. And you're saying,
Email me at that. Once you've used the link and submitted, if I don't get a notification that your project is associated with me, then I can't do anything about it. The only way to associate the project is to use the share link, share.donorschoose.org/I, T, lowercase g, C, V. But
can a person use that? So can a person use that link can a person use that link on their own?
They can, and I will receive, if it's a brand new to Donors Choose teacher, I will receive the notification, but I won't know where to apply it because they don't tell me the teacher's name or link.
Oh.
So I will just need that email to verify, "Hi, I'm Debbie. I submitted a project named get us what we need."
Okay, so at the end, I'll also post your email again.
Yes,
so
sounds good.
Now,
So let's get started. Donors Choose is great for teachers who want to bring new experiences and materials to their classroom, however, do not have the money to spend out of pocket. I've heard it before. I've said it. I'll say it again. I worked at a bank. I didn't bring my own money to the bank in order to help my customers. My son works at a day camp. He doesn't pay for the trips for his campers. When we are teachers, we are expected to provide a certain amount of financial stability to our classrooms, which is ridiculous for us to do out of pocket. We're being paid to buy things for our classroom. I do things with my full heart, and I've paid for many scholastic book orders for my students. I've decorated my classroom in thousands of dollars. I've bought my students ice cream. And those are just a few things I've done out of my desire to do it. However, I also don't think that it should be expected. And Charles Best, who is the founder and current CEO of Donors Choose, came up with this idea in his classroom as a Bronx history teacher that maybe the public actually wants to help fund public schools with micro grants, small ideas that can make a large impact. So you can get what you need as a teacher through Donors Choose. The mission, I will read straight from there, is we, Donors Choose, make it easy for anyone to help a classroom in need, moving us closer to a nation where every student in every community have the tools and experiences they need for a great education. So we're going to talk about what Donors Choose actually is and can do. I'll tell you a small, short funding story of mine. We're going to get started, give you some tips for success, and then you will create your own projects. So what is Donors Choose? Donors Choose is a nonprofit classroom funding site for teachers. Teachers get exactly what they need. If a teacher knows they need a document camera for their classroom, they don't have to write a 20-page grant proposal and get money and then have to go out and spend the money and then defend that money. You write a project saying, I would like this AVER document camera. You go shopping in their vendor directory. You choose what you need. You put it into your cart. You write 2 short essays answering prompts. And then once the project is live, donors contribute small or large amounts to your project. And once that project is fully funded, Donors Choose ships that exact item to your classroom. There's no other steps for shopping or purchasing. You do have to write some short thank you notes, but we're going to thank everyone anyway because nobody's going to give you money that you're not exceptionally grateful for. Every dollar counts and every donor counts. We live with an attitude of gratitude. Thank you for helping my students. So Elizabeth Munt, a 4th grade teacher from Minnesota, said, DonorsChoose.org is so easy to use. It's made especially for teachers and supporters of education. So it draws a unique audience that is committed to teachers and students. Teachers ask, my students need a projector for the classroom. And Mrs. Ahert received the exact projector that she needed for her classroom through a Donors Choose project. So this is a Donors Choose project. You will see multiple things on the page. First of all, a title. You can make it catchy or you can make it straightforward. Flexible seating for flexible minds. It gives you an idea right away, right up front, what is being requested. Now you have your resource summary. Help me give my students quiet and cozy workspaces with flexible, cozy, flex space, comfy floor seats. So I know this teacher is requesting floor seats. When you write your project, be straightforward. Say exactly what it is you're asking for. My students need kindergarten level reading books for our library. My students need a overhead projector. Do people use those anymore? Who knows? So we can share our work on the board. My students need a lot of crayons because in this pandemic, we don't want to share materials. Go straight ahead and say exactly what you're requesting. The second part is an essay you're going to write up front called My Students. You are going to describe exactly who your students are within your school community, within your larger community. Talk about your students. The least interesting thing you can say about your students is that they receive free or reduced price lunch. Those are not who your students are. They're not a federal funding program. They are people. They are dreamers, and they are players, and they are smilers, and they are criers. And just say, I started kindergarten. This was the first school experience for many of my students after learning in pre-K online last year during the epidemic. They're not really sure how to behave in a classroom community. But we're working together, we're trying, we're learning a little bit every day. That's just one way of saying it. I talk about my students. I'm a computer teacher, technology, digital literacy, and computer science. I see my students approximately once every 5th day. And that's what I say in my essay. I work with students who come into school as young as 3 years old. And for many of them, I work with them straight through for 7 years, and they leave at maybe 11 years old. And we've built this connection over the time that they've been with me. We have students who come from families that receive government assistance. We have families who live in mansions in my neighborhood. We just happen to be in that dead demographic where we have students on 2 different sides of the avenue. It's the truth. I say it. It doesn't make my students bad or good. It makes them who they are. Talk about your students for who they are. Do you have English language learners? You can say that. They come learning another language, they come speaking another language, and they're learning English. That makes them bright because they can handle 2 languages. Do you have students with special needs? It's okay to say, I have students with special needs. What's not okay is to single a student out or talk about their actual diagnosis. So please keep that in mind. So what has Donors Choose done impact-wise for education? Well, as of this morning, they've raised $1.5 billion for classrooms across the site, which means that $1.5 billion has funded 2.04 million projects for 655,887 different teachers. And let's raise that amount and make that 655,889 teachers with Donna and Denise today. So my funding journey, I work at PS 236 in Brooklyn. So far, I've had 251 projects funded on Donors Choose. I have 1 live right now, but I'm holding off on funding that because on Thursday, there's going to be a special match for students who are in the highest need demographic, and my school falls under that. So I'm waiting to advertise my project until that match happens. I'll tell you about the match in a moment. So things I have funded through Donors Choose: flexible seating like hokey stools, classroom library books for both my classroom when I was a 3rd or 4th grade teacher and for my computer lab library, snacks for during school and my after school program, board games, iPads, Chromebooks, laptops, and printers, multiple of each of those for different reasons and needs throughout the years, a 3D printer, many, many sets of headphones, a whiteboard for the back of my computer lab, an Apple TV, and robots. Those are just some of the things. I don't have the time or the space to list all of the wonderful things and opportunities that Donors Choose has afforded my students. So how do we get started? You're going to create an account using the link that I've provided. You're going to request your items by shopping through the vendor directory. Then when your project is live, it's eligible for funding. You can send friends and family and parents in your class, and total strangers and foundations and corporations will find your project and will donate. The smallest donation amount is $1, and the largest donation amount is whatever that person can afford. They can fully fund your project. They could fund multiple projects. It's really the donor's choice. Donors choose how much to donate and to which projects they want to donate. And then you receive the goods. They're literally shipped to your school. You get your Amazon box, you get your Lakeshore box, you get your Staples box. you unpack it, you share it with your students, you take a few pictures, upload them to the site, and then they're yours to use. So when you create an account, you're going to see teacher sign up. This should take about 5 minutes. You're going to put in your personal email, and there's a couple of reasons for that. A lot of teachers don't check their work email when they're not at work, and that's a separation of home and work issue, and I respect that. I don't have that self-control, but I'm sure many of you do. Another reason is some of the education servers block certain emails, and you want to make sure that you can receive those Donors Choose emails. A lot of them are very timely. If you have to edit a project that you've submitted, you have a few days to do that. If you have to choose replacement materials, you have a few days to do that. So always make sure you use a personal email and your real full name. I've seen teachers who try to kind of make it more of a classroom project than a personal project and name it something like the Brooklyn Music Project. That's for later. That's for titles on your projects, on your requests. But you should use your name as a teacher so you can be identified by your school and by Donors Choose. So think about what you're going to need. And here are some prompts to help you. To teach an upcoming unit my students need, and perhaps you need microscopes or slide samples or live crickets. That's something that you can, those are all things you can request on the site through Frey Scientific, Carolina Biologic. To bring my dream learning activity to life, my classroom needs maybe programmable robots or something as simple as batteries so that we can start reusing our robots and the batteries have drained. To make my school a more vibrant, engaging place for students, my school needs, maybe you want a board for your lobby. My school has a TV that we use in the lobby, and we put up pictures and announcements, and when the students arrive in the morning, they can see what's been going on in the school, and when we have visitors to the school, they can see our pictures and our announcements, and it makes it more of a community place. That's my school. Your school may have very different needs. One of the my training partner, Christy, actually got wall clings to put up in the bathroom with inspirational sayings so that when the students are in there, instead of getting into some sort of mischief, as we know students can do when they're unsupervised, they read things like throw kindness like confetti, and it gives them that positive feeling for being in their school building. You know what your students need. So then you're going to create your project request. There's a standard project, which is a materials project where you go shopping through the Donors Choose vendor directory. There's professional development if you need to take a course to strengthen your practice and it will directly relate to your students. So if you are a digital literacy teacher and you need to take a course in digital photography to strengthen your skills in that and help to teach that to your students, you can fund that. However, if you are a fourth grade teacher and you'd love to learn knitting, that's awesome. But unless you can tell how that is going to directly affect the educational goals of your classroom and your students, that will not be permitted. So professional development can be used for the national board certification. It can be used to take graduate level courses or what in New York City we call 30 above courses, which are not necessarily graduate level, but they add to our salary steps. So they'll ask you about your students, what grades you teach. If you teach multiple grades, feel free to mark those off. Mine are marked off from pre-K all the way through 5th. And then which grade do you teach the most? Which band do you see more often? Choose the number of students that this project will directly affect. I see about 550 students a year. However, when I'm writing a project for my club, that club only consists of 18 students. So this number would turn into 18. But if I was asking for something like a projector to use in my computer lab with all of my students, that number would be 550. That number doesn't affect whether or not you get funded. It's really for statistical purposes, but also donors tend to look and see where their most impact can be made. A chorus teacher may have 300 students that her new sheet music is affecting. A phys ed teacher may have 999 is actually the largest number you can put, but it may affect over 1,000 students if that phys ed teacher is asking for soccer goals. So that's what you'll put for that number. Keep that in mind. You'll go shopping in the vendor directory and you'll notice nationally known and recognized vendors are here, such as AKJ Education, which is books and digital downloads like BrainPop, Amazon, Best Buy, Blick. If you want Chromebooks, you can only shop through CDW, and Apple can only be shopped through Best Buy. So here's a pro tip from Ms. Walls. When writing a project, keep the total as low as possible. You can do this by breaking it into chunks as much as possible. I recommend books or general supplies that total less than $200 for a first project. And I agree. Keep your first project low so you get used to the platform, you get used to funding. If you are requesting funds from friends or family, even $5 or $10 will make a greater impact on a $200 project. As you go on and you get used to it, of course, there are going to be projects that are more costly. For example, I needed a full set of headphones for my computer lab. I couldn't keep that under $200. It was impossible. However, I did keep it under $500. And you can break projects up. If you need 35 sets of headphones and you know that you have funders who are willing to help, start out with a project for 10. Write another project for 10, and then you can write a third project for 15. And they're smaller and they tend to get funded more quickly, and you can just build up. Of course, if you need 35 sets of headphones right away or nobody can work, well, then you have to go with that. So you're going to give a project title. We talked about that. Make sure that the project title is capitalized like a book. We don't use punctuation in titles unless, of course, it's a colon, a comma, or an exclamation point, or a question mark. We don't put periods at the end of titles. Don't write the whole thing in capitals. We're not shouting at our donors, and that'll be fixed anyway by the screener. The faster the screener can go through your project, the faster it'll get posted. When you write about your project, specifically mention what you are requesting. I am requesting an external computer monitor for my classroom. This monitor will help students in the back of the room or on the other side of the room, further away from the smartboard, to be able to see what is being projected. There you go. You've mentioned the idea of what you're asking for and the student benefit. Then you have donors. And if you notice this little liftoff tab right here, I will explain that in a moment. So donors' names appear, the date that they've donated. They can choose to put their home state if they would like, and they can choose to write a comment. They don't have to write a comment. They can donate anonymously. That's up to the donor. But here we have David Lee Gonzalez from Texas gave, and he chose this project because their training staff has given so much, and I couldn't thank them for always taking care of my brother and I. So I'm giving back to them. So that was awesome. Here's Rico from Texas, and he gave, and he didn't choose to write a comment. But if you notice, the teacher, Mrs. Gomez, thanked this donor and most likely thanked this donor down here. Now, Liftoff is a one-time use code for a teacher on their very, very first project that has been submitted. If a donor uses a credit card or PayPal or cash to make a donation, up to $25 of that donation. So if I'm donating $50 by credit card to Denise's project and I type in Liftoff, in the checkout box, $25 of that will be matched. So she will actually get a $75 donation from me. It can be only used on the teacher's very first project. It can only be used by a donor who has not donated to that teacher before, and it can only be used for up to $25 per donor for the first 7 days. So go out there and get those donations during your first week and remind them to use Liftoff, and you will see how quickly that first $200 project can fund. So once a project is fully funded, every dollar has been donated by either a corporate match or citizen donors. Donors Choose will send you an email, and it will literally say, hooray, your project got funded. Take these steps to receive your materials. And you will just go through and make sure it's what you wanted. I wanted bounded paper towels and some disposable face masks and some Purell wipes, and it's all there and it looks good. And I check my shipping address for my school. I make sure everything's good. I say, yes, I will submit my photos and my thank you note by this date. And I click, and Donors Choose will have it shipped. And the great thing about using the vendor directory is that most of their servers sync. So Amazon, I had a project funded by Amazon last week. I literally received the materials the next day because the servers synced and they were close enough that I got an Amazon delivery instead of a UPS shipment. And you'll get an email saying materials have been ordered, materials are shipped, materials are delivered. So make sure you tell whoever receives packages in the front of your building that you are waiting for some things. Here are just some tips for success. Of course, low-cost projects have the highest chance of success. Future projects should be $600 or less, unless you can't do that. If you're requesting an Apple MacBook for your classroom because you need a laptop, and this is the laptop that will do the best job for your students, you cannot keep it under $600 because a less than $600 Apple MacBook doesn't exist. However, you could request a Lexmark or an HP or a Dell laptop for around $550, and it might do the same job, but that's up to you. It's a teacher's choice about what you know is best for your students. Keep in mind, higher cost projects are harder to fund. Break larger ideas into smaller projects. Before the pandemic, with me having no clue there was going to be a pandemic, how could I know? I wanted 30 Chromebooks in a cart for classes so that I could start using Google Classroom with some classes outside of the computer lab. So I wrote 3 separate projects for 10 Chromebooks each. They were each funded individually at different times. And then I wrote a 4th project for a cart. And they were all funded, and it came out to about a total of $7,000 when all was said and done. But that was done over an 8-month period with 4 different projects. And it's definitely doable. I have a base of donors. I have people who I could reach out to who will bring other donors in. So I did it. It was a lot of work. It was a lot of promotion. It was a lot of thank yous. But in the end, not only did it turn out to be worth it, but it was actually necessary because we had a lot of people take those Chromebooks home when we shut down in March of 2019 so that they could actually work and learn. You never know. You just never know. Write your essay with supporters in mind. If I'm reading an essay, I want to know exactly what's being requested, how it's going to be used, and who it's going to be used by. Who are your students? Are you requesting electronic microscopes for kindergarten students? I don't think that's quite appropriate, but maybe you can explain to me how it is. Are you requesting Legos for 12th graders? Some people would scoff at that and say, what do 12th graders need with Legos? We all know as teachers that Legos are the first step in engineering. So sure, they might need them. Explain that to your donor. Let them see it. So I discussed the liftoff code. So if a donor is using a gift card or an account credit, which happens sometimes if a project doesn't go through, credit will go back to the donor. They don't get a refund. You will never get a credit card or cash or check refund. You will get credit on the site to apply to another project. Keep that in mind. So you cannot use Liftoff if you're using an account credit or a gift card, such as those friends and family pre-funding cards. If your project is in pre-funding, meaning you've written it, you've submitted it, you're waiting for it to be screened, somebody can donate money and you will get a gift code to use, but they cannot use Liftoff. So hold off asking friends and family for your initial donations until your project is actually live on the site. And you will get an email saying, thank you for submitting your project. And then you'll get another one saying, we've posted your project, now let's get it funded. That's when you should share Liftoff. How can you share? Well, you can email your friends and family. You can post it on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram. I help teachers in my school during parent-teacher conferences. We make QR codes of the web page, that landing page, and we post it on the door and say, good evening, parents. If you'd like to see our latest Donors Choose projects, please click this code. They click it with their phone. It goes directly to the donation page. And now maybe they're more likely to place a donation because it's already open and they don't have to start searching, go home, remember to do it. There's many different ways you can advertise. Here's an article to help you with Liftoff. Once your project is live on the site, encourage supporters to enter the word Liftoff. As I said, this will match their contribution for the first 7 days. So in the long term, you can check match offers. Here's a link for matching offers. That just means that a corporation or a company or a private citizen is matching, and there are different kinds of matches. So for example, the Bill Gates Foundation in September did a back to school match. So for every $1 donated across the site to any project, he donated 50 cents. So they call that a boost. It gave you that extra 50% boost. So every $5 became $7.50. Every $50 became $75. Then there's a 2 times match. That's the most popular. And sometimes Staples will do it. Right now, the Allstate Foundation is doing it, that for every $1 donated, $1 will be matched. So a $20 donation becomes a $40 donation. Keep in mind that matches have criteria, and they look for very specific types of projects. Dick's Sporting Goods is matching team sports projects. So if you are the coach or the academic advisor for a volleyball team or a step team or a basketball team, girls or boys, doesn't matter, co-ed, even better, Dick's Sporting Goods can find your project and match dollar for dollar for each $1 donated. And that, if it's such a help, that if you have a project for $500 and you only have to fundraise $250, it goes that much faster. And people come back to support projects. They will sort projects on the site looking for match offers. Sonic Drive-In has something every fall that's coming up now that you can vote on the Sonic site, and it will help you if you get enough votes, if you're the highest vote getter for that specific round of voting, they will donate up to $600 to your project. 1 year in the spring, they had money left over from this, and they did a 5 times match on projects for teachers who had not had their projects funded, but were voted for. So I had a 5 times match. Every $1 I donated became $6 because Dick's matched it 5 times, and I was actually able to fund off one of my Chromebook projects that way. So here's match offers, just talking about how companies and organizations will match those. And any questions? If you want to get started, here is the link. Any questions?
Yeah, I have a question. So what I understood is for everything that we want, we would make a separate project.
Yeah, so you can put multiple things in. A minimum project is $100. So if you're asking for several reading books, you're going to ask for multiple books. You're not going to ask for one copy of Don't Let the Pigeon Drive the Bus. You're going to ask for multiple.
And another question I had, say, because I know I just started, and I know in the beginning a lot of teachers transition to different schools, finding their match and things like that. I mean, for now I'm happy in my school, but I never know what's gonna happen in the future. So in the case of me going to a different school, would I be able to take those items with me, or is that for the school?
That's a good
That's
question.
a great question. Thank you. Thank you for that. So the materials are actually owned by the school.
Mm.
So whatever school you're working in and you write the project for, they own it. Many schools choose not to put these items on inventory for multiple reasons. It's $75 to add an electronic device to inventory in the DOE, and some schools choose not to go to that expense. Other schools will go to that expense, or they will do a separate internal inventory. That's up to them. So the short answer is it's owned by the school, but you are the steward of that. So it's not like your principal could come along and say, oh, you got a MacBook for your classroom, but I believe the library teacher needs that more and take it. That's not what this is about. However, there are many times when a principal will say to you, well, I know you did the fundraising for this. As long as you're transferring it to your new school, I'm fine with you taking it. Consumables, obviously, crayons, paper, board decoration. You're not going to take that because it's going to be used. It's going to be consumed and you don't have to worry. Books for your own classroom library. I've never heard of a principal or administrator saying a teacher can't take their books.
What about your laptop cart? I mean, when your laptop cart, contents of your laptop cart went home over the pandemic after 8 months of crowdfunding and promotion, how did you feel about that?
Honestly, I'm all about my school. So as soon as my principal said to me, we have to get devices into the hands of, it was educational assistants, what they're called paraprofessionals in New York City, some teachers and some students. And we literally went through all of the iPads we had. We went through MacBooks that had been purchased by the school through FAMUS funds.
Right.
And then I said to my administrator, I have these Chromebooks. Let's just give these to the educator assistants, because this way they can log in, they can get on. Some of them were using their phones.
Yes.
So I was fine with it. And I will tell you, out of 30 devices that were lent out, 25 came back in perfect condition. 2 came back with issues, probably not caused by those people who took them, but from wear and tear. And then 3 have yet to be returned, but I'm okay with that, because if people are still using them, if they're still working with them, the more power to them. It's about the kids, getting that education to the kids. If I were to leave my school, that's not a question I'm going to even think about, because I've been at my school 28 years. I'll be retiring, and within the next decade, I'm not going anywhere.
Wow. So you've been at the same school for 28 years?
I have. I
think I asked you that when I first met you, because I've been at 5 schools at least, or 5 at maybe 10. I'm my year 17, and every school is different, and it's just amazing to me that you've been at the same school for 28 years. But
I walked in, I graduated in June. I walked in September with my resume, and the principal at the time, may he rest in peace, was a very nice man. He interviewed me on the spot, and he said to me, I'll let you know. And I said, okay. And I left. And a teacher got slightly injured, line of duty injury, a couple of days later. She was perfectly fine. I hate the fact that substitutes need to depend on people getting ill or hurt to work.
Yes.
And he called me and asked me to come in one day because my resume happens to be on the top of his pile. Either he moved it there on purpose or I was the last person he interviewed, who knows. And I came in and I worked that day and he observed me. He observed me. And the payroll secretary asked me if I could work the next 2 days. And I've literally been there since.
Wow. And you've found a way to evolve in this way. I mean, you did your administrative license, you do your Donors Choose volunteering. It's incredible. It's just amazing what you do for teachers. And I really appreciate it. It's
Thank you.
unbelievable. Are paraprofessionals able to do Donors Choose as well?
So it's frontline educators with a caveat. We all know that paraprofessionals work extremely hard. Some of them plan the lessons. Many of them do small groups. However, the list of people who can write Donors Choose projects is limited to teachers, related service providers like occupational therapists, physical therapists, athletic coaches,
social workers,
school social workers, psychologists, guidance counselors, nurses.
Okay.
Not staff developers, not academic coaches, because they're considered to be working more with staff than students. They say if you are a frontline educator working full-time, 75% of your time or more. So school secretaries work so hard, but they're not eligible for Donors Choose projects. Administrators are not eligible to write Donors Choose projects. Neither are school aides, school safety agents, custodians, parent volunteers. They all give of their time. However, there's a kind of workaround. If each of these titles can hook up with a teacher in the school, the para works with the teacher they work with, or the administrator works with their instructional cabinet, they can still team up to write a project, but it's always under the teacher's name and it's always that teacher's responsibility. So if I work with my assistant principal to get further Chromebooks, it will be my project. For my students, I will be responsible for the thank yous. I will be responsible for the pictures. I will be responsible for where the materials are distributed. But she can advertise for me. She can even request that I write the project as long as it affects students I'm working with. I can't write a project for the academic coach to get professional development books for the school because it's not my project and I'm not going to be in charge of those. However, if I want to participate in a professional development book club, I can write that project and share those with my colleagues.
What about professional? I remember I took a course at Fordham University for my AP. I teach AP English, and I stayed at the dorm for a week for 11 AP, and then I stayed at the dorm for my 12 AP course, and it was $3,000 per course, and my school funded that. But does Donors Choose fund something like that?
Well, right now, Donors Choose is not doing any in-person class trips, visitors, or professional development. They did up until the pandemic. There was something called a professional development trip project where you could actually get reimbursed for $150 in travel expenses and a certain amount in hotel expenses and food, and attending the class or the seminar. However, those are not happening now due to the pandemic. So you can do something online. You can take a class online. They'll pay for the registration for that class. In New York City, we do something called ASPDP, which is professional development. And in order to get the credits that we need for our salary increase, it's an additional $350. You can write the project asking for the course fee, which is maybe $150 plus the $350, and get that whole thing funded.
Okay.
But it's online and you're not attending in person.
Right. I did have fun at that Fordham course. I did those 2 Fordham course, 2 weeks in Manhattan. That was very nice.
Right.
But sure they did do that. Yeah, but they did do that, you're saying.
At one point they did. They would have allowed you to have your course fees plus a small stipend, a limited topped out stipend for staying in the dorm and paying for your food.
Okay.
A friend of mine did a yoga week for educators. It was a 1-week course in Manhattan where she got certified as a elementary education yoga instructor. So they paid for her Metro card fees, which was about, for the whole week, about $30.
Yeah, that's nothing.
Plus her lunch while she was in Manhattan, plus the course fees. So it was about $500 in total, but she posted it, advertised it, promoted it, had it funded, and did the course, loved the course, and now she's certified.
Wow, maybe she wants to come on, do a podcast. That would be interesting.
Maybe.
That would be awesome. All right, so Donna and Denise. Donna, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly.
Yes, it's one
right.
N, but it's Donna.
Oh, okay, good. So Donna, do you have any questions, or Denise, any more questions?
So I just have one quick question.
Mhm.
So, Ellen, if I submit a project and it doesn't get funded, I mean, what's the likelihood of that happening? Is there a do-over, or?
Yes, there's of course a do-over. You can always submit another project. Anyone who donates to your project will get their donation credited back to them in one of two ways. The first way is it will go automatically back to the donor as credits in their account. And that donor can then choose to redonate to your project or to find another project. But another way that credits come back is when a teacher link is used, and you'll find that teacher link in the email telling you that your project has been posted live. If you share that teacher link and somebody donates directly through that teacher link, you will receive the credits in your teacher account to use on your next project. So the money doesn't necessarily go away. There is a time limit, about 30 days, on using credits. You can always donate $1 to a project, and then it'll extend your credits longer. So Donors Choose isn't looking to take away your donations, and if your project isn't funded, you can always go back and resubmit it. You can never just take a project that has been live and put it back live. You will have to reshop, make sure you write the essay again. But if your project wasn't funded, there might be a reason that it wasn't funded, and you might want to make your project cost lower, or you might want to make your essay a bit clearer, or maybe you want to find a different material because that's not something that would spark a donor's interest. But you have to remember that the general public is a whole wide world, and what may be interesting to one donor may not be interesting to another. I once had a project funded because I was asking for a subscription to World Book Online Encyclopedia. Remember those, pre-Google? And I mentioned that when my class was discussing Greek mythology, we were able to look up the names of certain gods and goddesses on the World Book. Well, lo and behold, a donor came across, and they had searched in the Donors Choose search bar Greek, and my project came up because I mentioned Greek mythology, and they donated, and their donation comment said, I always love donating to projects that incorporate Greek culture or history. Who would have thought? So whatever floats somebody's boat is what you'll get donations for.
And can teachers reach out to you? You know, like I want to post your email again, but can teachers reach out to you and say, well, is this okay? I mean, how I would.
I'm always happy to pre-read the projects before they're submitted so that they have the best chance of going live quickly. A project is very, very rarely outright rejected.
Okay.
Projects may be returned for editing. So they may say, please describe your students more fully. If a teacher just writes, I work in an elementary school in a major city and my students have suffered from the pandemic, that's not really describing your students. That's a general description that could fit almost any school, any public school at this point. So we may request more specific information about your students, their age or their grade or their learning ability. You may not be very specific in your request for materials. You may say, I'll go back to the MacBook. I would love to get a MacBook for my students. It'll make my planning so much easier. that's not really describing the student impact. If you say, I will be able to create slide decks and hook this laptop directly up to my smartboard, I can take the laptop with me when I'm doing planning, create it directly on there, and then seamlessly present it to my students. Well, now I see a student learning benefit.
I mean, I would attempt to do this maybe on the Google Drive so that I could always fine tune my essays and my description of my students and description of my school and all that stuff so that I would never have to restart it every single time.
Let me show you my teacher page. Hold on one second.
Okay.
So I'm going to share my teacher page with you. I'm going to stop sharing this one, and I'm going to share my teacher page. So can you see my teacher page now?
Wait, hold on. Here we go.
Okay. So every teacher page will show up with your name, a small profile picture that I've uploaded. You can upload, you don't have to. This is an optional picture. I like to have it there because it connects who I am with my donors. It shows my school and it tells my economic statistics for our school. This is pulled from a national database. And now this gives you a choice as a donor that you can give monthly or one time, but this is not project specific. This is just one of their ways of bringing in monthly donations to have a steady income stream for the platform. So now it'll tell you who the teacher is. This is my picture of my classroom. This is a few years old. This is actually my son who's now in high school, but I use this because it's kind of iconographic, and people who donate to my projects recognize this picture and might come back. If they're searching and they see my picture, they'll know right away it's me. So this is my current request. Hearing the teacher is important. I'm looking for both a wireless voice amplifier for my room. By the time I got home on Wednesday from teaching 3 full days, my throat hurt, my ear hurt, my masks I had to change several times because they were getting sticky. I was exhausted.
Same.
Using the wireless voice amplifier, I may not be able to hear my students as well. I'll have to walk closer to them, but at least the whole picture my room, 34 students sitting at 34 computers with 2 air conditioners and 2 air filters running. It's impossible for them to hear me. They try and they want to hear me. So I'm asking for the wireless voice amplifier, but I'm also asking for some Purell pumps because I have anywhere from 18 to 34 students coming into me every 50 minutes throughout the day. You go through a lot of hand sanitizer, more than the school could possibly provide. So I'm asking for a few as a supply. Past projects are here. These are the thank you notes that I've written to the donors, and they show up. But let's look at my live project. So my students, I work in a great, diverse, and effective school. Here we have a mix of students who live locally within walking distance and many others who travel by school bus, city bus, and private van service to come to our school daily. Our students are culturally, socioeconomically, and academically diverse. So now you're getting a picture of who my students are. You can see them walking up. You can see the cars driving up to drop them off. You can just picture the chaos and traffic of school buses on one side of the school and private vans pulling up on the other, everyone getting out to come into school at 8 o'clock. These children are wonderful, fun, and bright, and they encompass the spectrum of backgrounds, needs, skills in every way. We have native English speakers, English language learners. We have children with special needs. We have gifted and talented students. We have students that are legacies. Not only did their siblings attend the school, their parents attended the school. In some cases, their grandparents attended the school. Our school serves grades pre-kindergarten through 5th, which means that as the only technology teacher in the school, many of these students and I worked together for 7 years. I love watching them grow, mature, and thrive from 3 years old to 11 years old. Now you can picture my school, you can picture my students, you can see the big guys and the little guys all coming in and out of the lab throughout the day. That is your first essay. That is how you connect with donors, with who your students are, who they really are. I think, Denise, you're trying to speak, but you're muted. No? Okay. Sorry. So that's the first essay, the one about your students. Of course, your students are not my students. You may have a less diverse population where all of your students are immigrants from the same part of the world, or all of your students are native New Yorkers, but they live in generational low-income housing. There's a school in my district that has that. They're directly across from a low-income housing project, and it's generational, where when the children get older, they get apartments in that housing also. That's a different situation than mine, and you should say it. You should tell who your students are, how they're trying to break the cycle of poverty, or how they're so proud to still be living in the same place where their parents emigrated, who are store owners. Whatever your demographic is, and like I said, the least interesting thing about your students are how they receive lunch.
Mm-hmm.
My project. So this is just this specific project. This part stays with your projects for each project that you write, unless you choose to go in and edit it. I edit it and tweak it once in a while. Of course, it was very different last year when I was teaching third grade fully online. That was a completely different essay. So, and this essay you write each time for your specific project. However, if you are writing parts 1, 2, 3, 4, you could name it Hearing the Teacher is Important, Part 1, Part 2, Part 3, Part 4. Copy and paste this part over. And then, of course, somewhere in the essay, you would say, this is part 2 of 4. This is part 4 of 4. I've funded the first 3, and I'm so excited to finally finish with this large project. So here I talk about what I literally just told you, 3 days into the school year, and I already have a hoarse voice, sore throat, and ear pain.
Yes.
No, I'm not sick. I have teacher voice, that horrible condition that affects educators when we try to be heard in a large classroom through a face mask over the hum of 2 air conditioners and 2 air filters. More important than my own discomfort, however, is the desire to have all of my students actually hear me when I speak and be included in the discussion. So now I'm setting up the scenario. You can see what's happening. You can picture it in your mind. You can see that my concern is truly for my students. Although, yes, I don't want to work with a sore throat and an earache for the rest of the year. To solve these issues, I am requesting a portable voice amplifier. I will be able to speak in a somewhat normal voice, but be clearly heard by my students, even those in the cheap seats in the back. This will make coming to the computer lab more enjoyable and engaging for all. As you notice, I use a little bit of humor because people like to read something that's humorous or touching as opposed to dry statistics. Who here loved their economics textbook? I will bet nobody raises their hand. Students will not feel left out or ignored as they would if they could only hear a fraction of what I am trying to say. So here we're touching on their social emotional. They want to be included. And hopefully it will save my voice and my health. In addition, so this is where I'm adding the other item that is not the main focus. In addition, I need to increase my supply of hand sanitizer. Seeing over 150 students in a day plows through the Purell very, very quickly. Thank you for your support. I'm telling them they know why I need hand sanitizer. I'm just justifying it so they know that I know it's in the cart. So here is your cart where your donation goes. So it's listed in order that you requested on the site backwards. So I went in first and I got my voice amplifier from Amazon, and it's less than $55. And then I went and I asked for the Purell hand sanitizer. I'm getting a 12-pack of 20-ounce pumps, which should last me hopefully through November, December. And then this is the total cost of the materials. There's no shipping fee from Amazon. Sales tax, Donors Choose is tax exempt in the state of New York, so that's not a problem. So sometimes there's a credit card processing fee. It's very minimal. So this is the total project cost before fees. So the fee here is a 15. Oh, look at that. Huh. That's interesting.
Wow.
So there used to be, oh, I missed one. Never mind. I'm sorry. So fulfillment, labor, materials, that's a flat fee, that $30. Somehow I skipped that line. Okay, I'm no longer confused. Every project has a $30 fee attached to it because that's how Donors Choose keeps their servers running and pays their staff and can ship things out. So that's $30. You cannot do anything about that. Every project from $100 to $100,000 will have that $30 fee attached. So this is the total cost, $185 before the optional. Now there's an optional 15% of every project. So for this project, it's $32.81 because the project is $153 in materials. That optional, the donors have the option of removing the 15% from their donation. They won't remove it from the whole project, only from the amount they donate. So that part is then removed from the project and it lowers the cost of funding the project slightly and it makes a more impactful donation from the donor. So the total cost, including all fees for my project, is $218.76. If somebody donates, so we can see here, Allie screened and posted my project. If somebody donates, they'll show up right here, not the amount they donated, but the fact that they donated. And if they used a match code, it'll show up here like the little liftoff tag. And that's what a project looks like.
Okay. All right, guys. So do you think you're ready to go? You think you're ready to do this?
Okay, so would you two like to get started with your projects while I walk you through? Or would you like to do it on your own?
I can do it on my own. If I have questions, I can just email to the email.
Yes. So Donna,
Right.
do you want to do yours or you want to do it on your own?
No, I think I'm going to try it on my own because we.
Okay, so make sure you use the share link right here.
Right.
That's the most important to associate it with me. It's not the most important to get your project posted, but if you want the $25 donation from me, I need to be associated with it.
Okay.
Also, I cannot, because it's given in the form of a gift card, I cannot use Liftoff for you, just to make that known. But if there is a match for some reason, if you ask for something that the Allstate Foundation is now matching and the match automatically appears, my $25 will be included in that match. If you want to look at match offers, I will show you right now where you can go to notice the match offers. That will help you. And when you write your project, you can think of how it might fit language that will help you to make the most of your project. So here, I'm just going to share for one quick second the match offers. You can see that tab. I hope you can see that tab. Okay, so here are the match offers. And if you just put in your state, obviously I'm going to put in New York. Different states sometimes have different matches. Texas tends to have matches. There's something that happens with a gas company, a petroleum company, usually in the fall. I don't know if it happened this year because it doesn't affect New York, but they match to their footprint. So here are match offers from New York. So if you're looking for financial literacy resources, it tells you 1-to-1, which means every dollar that's donated gets a dollar match while funds last. And it's always while funding lasts. A match offer may expire. You don't lose the funds they gave you, but you don't get additional funds from them. It tells you how to qualify. Reading plus subscriptions, which are online, and you have to go to AKJ Education to specifically request that. Here's some hand-to-mind resources from Amazon Business, and there's always see more details. Study.com subscriptions, middle school sports projects, and this is what I was referring to before with the Dick's Sporting Goods. You would have to put in a campaign code at the beginning when it says, what do you request? At the bottom, it said, do you have a campaign code? You would type in sports matter. And if it matches their criteria, then you would get the match when your project goes live. And I think that's it. Any other questions? It was so nice to work with you. Thank you for having me, Debbie.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Hold on one second. I'm going to end the live broadcast. 1 second. But thank you, everybody, for coming.